and welcome to Paul Runs Daily. Today I'm just heading out for about 90 minutes of very easy running, and I'm also going to do a short hill repeat session at around the halfway point. So the aim is to keep my heart rate very low into zone 1, and I'll just have a little push when we get onto the hills. Let's do it. We've had some pretty wild weather over the last week or so, starting with a snowstorm, and then we had Storm Bert over the weekend, which left quite a bit of flooding, and the knock-on effect are the trails are pretty much washed out at the moment, so we'll probably get a little bit muddy later on. But it's absolutely fantastic to get out in some sunshine. It's still quite chilly, but the wind's gone and the sun's out, so life is good. Come on, you. And this is enjoying it. Onto the trails now. This first section isn't usually too bad, but it does get quite muddy as we progress. I've got 2 events remaining in 2024. I've had a bit of an up and down year when it comes to racing, but I'm hoping to end the year on a high, and the events are the Beacon Bash, which is a 20-mile trail race, quite local to me. It's a charity event, and we get quite a lot of walkers attempting the distance, as well as some pretty decent club runners. Did it for the first time last year, and I finished with just over 3 hours. I'm not quite in the same shape as I was last year. It might be a bit of a tough ask to get close to that time, but I'm going to give it a go. At 20 miles, it's short enough to have a pretty good go at it and not too much of a worry if I get it wrong. Last year the conditions underfoot were atrocious. We'd had lots of rain and there was knee-deep water in places, heaps of mud, and it was generally pretty slow going. And I think this year's conditions are going to be quite similar. I also took a couple of wrong turns at the event, which maybe added a couple of minutes to the overall time, but I can't use that as an excuse. So we'll just have to see. The race is a sellout, and it starts in 4 waves, with the slower wave starting early and then the fast wave going last off about an hour or so later. So I've put myself in the last wave. I'll hopefully hang on to the quicker guys for as long as I can. This is the hill I'm going to be using for my hill reps. I'd normally use the other side, but I've just run up that and it's really muddy, so we'll keep the reps to this side. It's a slightly gentler incline, but a little bit longer. Probably about 45 seconds to a minute of effort. But I'm just going to go and finish my loop, and then we'll come back here and get started with the hill reps. I don't always wear my heart rate monitor. I find over the years I've got myself quite dialed in with how I feel at different intensities, but it is good to strap it on every now and again just to see where you are. Last night at Run Club we had a tempo run plan, and I usually use those runs as a little bit of a run test. I set a heart rate target and I try and maintain that for the duration of the run and just compare it to pace and overall distance, and I find over the months it gives me a pretty good idea of where my form is. However, yesterday was quite rainy and I was running with James and we were both feeling a bit tired, so we didn't do the whole 1 hour run, we just cut it short after a lap and finished up with about 5 or 6k. But for the time we were running, our pace at a given heart rate was a little bit quicker than it has been over the summer. So despite my lower training volume and recent illnesses, I don't think my form's that far away from where I'd like it to be. And the good thing about the lower volume is I've got much less stress in my body, and that accumulative fatigue that caught up with me last year I don't think is quite there. So hopefully I can keep that in check and make a couple of changes early next year to have some good races. And my last race of the season is one of my favourites, and it's the Tour de Helvellyn, just a week before Christmas, and traditionally it's on or around the shortest day of the year. It's a 37-mile-ish ultramarathon, pretty much self-supported, and you need to navigate. There's no road or route markings, and there's not really a predetermined course. You get a number of checkpoints and it's up to you to navigate between those points and go whichever way you feel is safe and appropriate. I've done the event a handful of times and every time it's been different. It's massively impacted by weather. As you can imagine, Lake District in December can be pretty changeable, and we've had some huge extremes of weather. Sometimes on the same day. One year we had crampons going up and over, and other years we've been practically swimming. And last year was unseasonably warm. So the main problem I had then was I suffered from cramp in the later stages, probably because I just hadn't drank enough, which for a winter ultra, is quite unusual for me. So I'm very much looking forward to that event. Rob's coming up, we've got Adam coming, and Andrew's coming up as well for his second attempt at the event. And we're all got quite different approaches to the event, and it'll be interesting to see all the videos afterwards and how we got on. Adam's looking at producing a documentary around the event, and he's going to showcase some of the athletes and the event, and also take a look at the community aspect of these low-key ultramarathons. I have been putting together a bit of a year recap, but I'm going to wait until these last two events are done and dusted before I put anything together, because I'm still not too sure if the year's been a good or a bad one in terms of my running. I have enjoyed some fantastic events and I've had some pretty decent results, but I also suffered with 2 DNFs which are still lingering, and I find sometimes when you have a setback such as a DNF, it can really affect your outlook and your view of other events. But hopefully I've learnt some lessons. I've entered into one of the DNF events for next year, the Manchester to Liverpool 50 mile, so I'm hoping to put that one right, and the less we talk about Snowdon the better. That was an event I really shouldn't have started in the first place, and the DNF was pretty much inevitable from the off. So I'm actually less disappointed about my Snowdon outcome than I am with the Manchester to Liverpool. Right, so just coming up to my turnaround point. It's not quite as muddy as I thought it would be. Quite a few puddles, but we've still got a little bit of firm ground to play with. So this is my turn at the water treatment plant. Been going for just over 30 minutes. and my watch just beeps for 5Ks. Have a little bit of a walk now, and then we've got about 10 minutes to get back up to the hill and do those hill repeats. Right, we're just rolling into the hill for the start of the hill repeats. I'm going to do the first one as a baseline, so I'm going to keep my heart rate down. Just going to hit the lap, and my aim for this first one is to keep the heart rate in zone 1 and just get a time to the top, and then I'll compare it with the other efforts. So I'll keep the camera rolling through this one. It's not very steep and it isn't particularly long. So that's the top 45 seconds. Jog back down. I'm going to repeat that another 5 times, getting progressively harder each time I do it. Into number 2, and the key for progression intervals is not to go too hard too early, and that's why I always do the baseline one, so I kind of know roughly what I'm aiming for. So that one's 40 seconds. So a 5-second improvement. 4 to go. 37 seconds. 3 more. So I'm going to start getting a bit faster on these next couple. That was a quick one. 28-29 seconds. I did have a slightly longer break between that one. There was another dog walker and the dogs wanted to have a bit of a play. So heart rate's getting up over 140 now, which my zone 2 starts at around 143. And there will be a little bit of lag because it's quite a short interval. There's not really enough time for the heart rate to get up and match where the actual effort is. So this is where your feel comes in. Very slippy on this last little bit. So 2 more to go. Let's keep it rolling. Go on, Missy, go on. So I think that was pretty much the same time as the previous one. And I'll put that down to almost tripping over Missy at the beginning. It felt harder and heart rate's gone, still going up 150 there. So on a RPE scale, I'd probably put that effort up maybe 7 or 8. But if you compare that to actual heart rate, it'd probably be 5 or 6. So when you're doing hill repeats or any short form interval session, heart rate is a good metric, but developing a good sense of feel of your effort is probably more important for the shorter duration intervals. So I've got 1 more left and I'm going to give this some beans, keep it rolling. I've also had a good recovery, but what I'm going to do is go past my start point and have a bit of a rolling start. So this should give me a little bit of a confidence booster because I'm starting from a moving rather than a stationary. Right, and we're off. 25 seconds. So a little bit of a cheat with a rolling start, but I'll take that as a win. And my sleeve brushed on the watch face and switched it into the other setting. So I'll maybe have to double check when I upload the session details. But my heart rate got well into the 50s, well into the 150s, and 153, 54 is where my zone 3 starts. But again, effort wise, that's up towards a 9, even though the heart rate may indicate otherwise. But it's a good little session, not too many reps, and the duration of each rep is probably just short enough not to put too much stress into my body. So I'm able to enjoy a little bit of higher intensity, a break from the norm, but not put too much stress and fatigue into my body, so I'm able to roll again tomorrow. Tomorrow night's run is with Billings Running Club, as usual, on a Wednesday evening. Their routes usually vary between 8 and 12k, and it's always trail. And we've had some cracking runs over the last few weeks. I'm in with a decent bunch of runners, and we do push each other hard. There are times where I'm really hanging on, especially on the climbs. I'm definitely one of the slower runners in the group on the climbs, but usually when we get onto the flatter sections or the downhills, I can push on a little bit, and it's a good little blast. It's called a social run, but we don't do much talking, and it generally turns into a little bit of a smash fest. But it's good. Again, it's not long enough to really thrash you too much, but it is long enough to make you feel like you've had a really good hard effort. We've just tipped over the hour point for the run. I'm going to walk this last little bit onto the harder path, and then we'll have a jog home. I'll probably have to do a couple of laps of the park when we get back, just to get those 90 minutes in. The sun's still shining, still a bit chilly, especially when that wind comes. Almost back home. I'm going to walk the last 500 metres or so, just as a bit of a cool down. And that was a thoroughly enjoyable run. I got a little bit muddier than I planned, but I'd much prefer to stay on the trails as long as possible. Running out on the pavements around my local area can be quite hazardous during the day. Lots of traffic and cyclists on pavements, scooters and whatnot, so it's better to stay away from the crowds and out on the trails. If you've managed to stay for this long, why don't you consider subscribing? You'll get quite a lot of running content, and I'm starting to produce a little bit of gym content. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe and all that business. But for now, my name's Paul, and that was Paul Runs Daily.